Elder Zithkar moved slowly through the ancient archives of the Galactic Council. His 4 arms carefully handled the old documents as his large eyes scanned the text. The dust made him sneeze, but he kept searching. He needed to find something important, something that everyone had forgotten. "It must be here," he muttered to himself. His thin fingers turned another page in the massive book of galactic laws. Then he saw it. The warning about humans. The special rule that every council member learned on their first day, but few took seriously anymore. The document was clear. Humans were a protected species because of how they reacted when their young were threatened. The rule was written after the First Contact War, which happened 300 years ago. It stated simply, the first rule of galactic diplomacy: never harm human offspring. Zithkar remembered the stories his grandfather told him about how the humans fought with such fury when the Drakari took some of their children for study. The Drakari civilization no longer existed. The humans made sure of that. Elder Zithkar, "The council meeting begins in 10 minutes, said a young aide from the doorway. Zithkar nodded and closed the book. He would bring this up at the meeting. There were rumors that worried him. Rumors about plans involving the human colonies. Far away, on the Earth colony called Terran Hope, children played in fields under a purple sky. The colony was 20 years old and home to nearly 5,000 humans. They built their homes in a wide valley surrounded by tall mountains. 10-year-old Lily Carter ran across the grass with her friends. Her brown hair bounced as she moved. She stopped suddenly and bent down to look at something in the dirt. "Look what I found," she called to her friends. She picked up a strange rock that glowed slightly in her small hand. It had odd markings that seemed to shift and change as she turned it. Her friends gathered around, curious about the strange object. None of them noticed the small drone that hovered high above, recording everything they did. Lily's father, Commander Alan Carter, watched the children from a distance. He smiled as he saw his daughter showing off her discovery. As head of colony security, he always kept an eye out for trouble, but this was a peaceful afternoon. "Sir, the patrol reports are ready for your review," said Officer Ryan White, interrupting Commander Carter's thoughts. "Thank you, Ryan. I'll check them after dinner," Commander Carter replied. "Everything seems quiet today." Neither man knew about the invisible ships that had entered the colony's orbit, staying just beyond the range of their sensors. Back on the Council homeworld, Councillor Vex Morn stood before a group of military leaders. His sleek, metallic skin reflected the blue lights of the war room as he pointed to images of Terran Hope on the large screen. "The humans have settled on a planet rich with zenith crystals," Vex Morn said. "Our scans show large deposits beneath their colony. These crystals could power our fleets for centuries. But the protection treaties," began one general, "are based on superstition." Vex Morn cut him off. "I've studied humans for years. They are just another species with primitive emotions and basic weapons. The stories about their ferocity are exaggerated." He touched the screen, zooming in on Lily and her friends looking at the strange rock. "This child has found a fragment of a zenith crystal. We need to understand how it affects them and what they know about its properties." Vex Morn continued. "I have authorized a strategic intervention." "You mean an abduction," said General Kraz, his voice heavy with concern. "I mean a scientific expedition," Vex Morn replied coldly. "The first team leaves tonight. We will take a small sample of their young for study. The humans won't even know it was the Council. They'll blame space pirates or rival colonies." In the corner of the room, an aide recorded the meeting and quietly sent a copy to Elder Zithkar's office. By the time the Elder would receive it, the ships would already be approaching Terran Hope. That night, as Lily Carter slept in her bed, holding the strange crystal under her pillow, she dreamed of stars and distant worlds. She had no idea that in just a few hours, the peace of Terran Hope would be shattered forever. The night was quiet on Terran Hope. Most colonists were asleep as the 3 moons shone down on their homes. Only a few security officers patrolled the streets, and automated defense systems hummed softly. No one noticed when the stealth ships entered the atmosphere. They used technology that bent light around their hulls, making them invisible to human eyes and sensors. The ships landed silently in the hills just beyond the colony's perimeter. Soldiers in dark armor exited the ships. They moved like shadows toward the colony. Their orders were clear: locate and capture the children who had found the crystal, especially the girl named Lily Carter. Security Officer Diane Miller was making her final round near the school dormitories when she noticed something strange. The night birds had stopped singing. She reached for her communicator, but before she could call it in, a dart hit her neck. She managed to activate her body camera before she fell. Inside the main dormitory, Lily Carter woke up suddenly. She heard soft footsteps in the hallway. They didn't sound like the normal security patrols. She grabbed the glowing crystal from under her pillow and slipped out of bed. "Kevin, wake up," she whispered to her friend in the next bed. 10-year-old Kevin Porter rubbed his eyes as Lily shook him. "Something's wrong." Before Kevin could respond, the door to their room slid open. 3 tall figures stood there, wearing armor that seemed to absorb the darkness. Their faces were hidden behind smooth masks with glowing eyes. "These are the ones," said one of the figures, pointing at Lily and the crystal in her hand. Lily screamed, waking the other children. The figures moved quickly, spraying a sweet-smelling mist into the room. Children began to fall back to sleep, but Lily held her breath and pulled Kevin toward the emergency exit. Across the colony, alarms finally began to sound. Commander Alan Carter was awakened by the blaring noise. He rushed to the security center, his heart racing. "Report," he shouted as he entered the room. "Multiple intruders at the school dormitories," responded Officer Ryan White. "We've lost contact with Officer Miller." Commander Carter's blood turned cold. "Lily is in there," he whispered. He grabbed a weapon and ran toward the school, calling for backup as he went. But he was too late. By the time security forces reached the dormitories, the intruders were already retreating. 6 children were missing: Lily, Kevin, and 4 others who had been near the crystal the day before. The last transmission from Officer Miller's body camera showed the aliens clearly before they discovered and destroyed it. The footage was sent automatically to the colony's main database. Dr. Susan Carter, Lily's mother, and the colony's chief xenobiologist watched the footage with shaking hands. "They're Vexeri," she said, her voice breaking. "They work for the Galactic Council's Enforcement Division." Commander Carter slammed his fist against the wall. "Why would the Council take our children? We have peace treaties with them." Dr. Carter zoomed in on the image, pointing to a symbol on the alien's armor. "This isn't an official Council action. This is the mark of Counselor Vexmorn's personal guard. He's acting on his own." As dawn broke over Terran Hope, the colony was in chaos. Parents of the missing children gathered at the administrative building, demanding answers and action. Commander Carter addressed them, trying to stay calm despite his own fear and rage. "We've sent a distress call to Earth. Help is coming. I promise you, we will find our children." In orbit above the planet, the stealth ships prepared to jump to hyperspace. Inside one of them, the 6 children lay unconscious in stasis pods. Lily's crystal had been taken and was now in a sealed container, being studied by a scientist. "Counselor Vexmorn will be pleased," said the mission commander. "We captured the children and the crystal without alerting the Council." What they didn't know was that Officer Miller's footage had already been sent with the distress call to Earth. The message contained 2 critical pieces of information. Human children had been taken, and the attackers wore the insignia of the Galactic Council. On Earth, military commanders watched the footage in stunned silence. The aliens had broken the one rule that had kept peace for 3 centuries, and now humanity would respond. The distress call from Terran Hope reached Earth within hours. Earth Central Command convened an emergency meeting in their underground headquarters in what was once called Colorado. Admiral Frank Howard watched the footage of the alien abduction for the 3rd time. His face grew darker with each viewing. When the lights came back on in the meeting room, he slammed his fist on the table. "They've broken the only rule that matters," he said. The room fell silent. 12 military leaders from around the world sat around the table, their faces grim. "We've tried contacting the Galactic Council through diplomatic channels," said General Maria Lopes. "No response so far." Admiral Howard nodded. "We're not waiting for them to answer. Prepare the Phantom Fleet." The Phantom Fleet was humanity's secret weapon, 10 ships built for one purpose: unconventional warfare against technologically superior enemies. The ships were hidden in various locations throughout the solar system, waiting for a day everyone hoped would never come. "Who's going to lead the rescue mission?" asked General Lopes. "Captain Samantha Wright," Admiral Howard replied without hesitation. "She's the best tactical mind we have." Captain Wright was called from her training mission on Mars. When she arrived at Earth Command 6 hours later, she was immediately briefed on the situation. "6 children taken," she said, looking at the files, "including Commander Carter's daughter." "Yes," Admiral Howard confirmed. "Your orders are simple, Captain. Bring our children home. No restrictions." Captain Wright nodded, understanding what that meant. The gloves were off. "What ships do I get?" "The Nightshade and 2 support vessels, plus whatever specialized personnel you need." Across human space, the news about the abduction spread quickly. Retired soldiers volunteered in massive numbers. Among them was Gregory Thompson, Lily Carter's grandfather and a former Special Forces operative. At 63, Greg Thompson was still fit and dangerous. He called in old favors and arranged to be on Captain Wright's team before the official roster was even created. "I have one condition," he told Captain Wright when they met. "When we find the people responsible for taking my granddaughter, I want 5 minutes alone with them." Captain Wright studied the older man's face. "You'll get 2 minutes. That's all you'll need." Meanwhile, in Council space, Elder Zithkar discovered what had happened. He accessed the records of ships leaving Council territory and found Vex Morn's personal fleet had departed without filing proper flight plans. He confronted Counselor Vex Morn in his private chambers. "You've taken human children," he said, his voice shaking with anger and fear. Vex Morn looked up from his desk, his metallic skin reflecting the light. "A minor scientific expedition, nothing that concerns the full council." "You fool," Zithkar hissed. "You've violated the first rule. Do you know what the humans did to the Drakari?" Vex Morn waved a hand dismissively. "Ancient history. These humans are just another species with delusions of importance. The Drakari were more advanced than humans when they took their children. Their civilization was 5,000 years old. The humans wiped them out in 3 weeks," Zithkar said. "Return the children now, while you still can." Vex Morn smiled coldly. "The children are already at the research facility. By the time the humans even figure out who took them, we'll have learned all we need about the Zenith crystals." On Earth, preparations moved at incredible speed. The Phantom Fleet ships were brought online. The UES Nightshade, a vessel that could bend light around its hull just like the alien ships, became the command center for the mission. Captain Wright selected her crew carefully: expert pilots, combat specialists, and the best minds in xenobiology. Greg Thompson was listed as a cultural consultant, though his actual role involved skills from his Special Forces days. Just 3 days after the abduction, the human fleet was ready. But they weren't heading directly to Council space. Captain Wright had a plan that the aliens wouldn't expect. "We'll split into 3 groups," she explained to her team. Team 1 goes to the Council homeworld as a diplomatic mission. Their job is to distract and gather intelligence. Team 2 will track the quantum signature of the abduction ships. And we, she pointed to the Nightshade on the display, will follow the intelligence we've gathered from intercepted Council communications. Admiral Howard gave the final authorization. Operation Child's Return is now active. Good hunting. As the ships prepared to depart, Greg Thompson looked at a picture of his granddaughter. "Hold on, Lily," he whispered. We're coming. The UES Nightshade slipped into Council space like a ghost. Its special hull absorbed light and sensor scans, making it nearly invisible. On the bridge, Captain Samantha Wright studied the star map showing their position. "Any signs they've detected us?" she asked her crew. "None, Captain," replied Lieutenant Dale Brown at the sensor station. Their patrol ships passed within 5,000 kilometers and showed no reaction. Captain Wright nodded. The ship's stealth technology was working perfectly. The aliens had no idea humans had technology this advanced. They had kept it secret for decades, waiting for a moment like this. Greg Thompson stood near the back of the bridge, watching. As Lily's grandfather and a cultural consultant, he had no official role during flight operations, but Captain Wright wanted him nearby. His experience would be valuable soon. "We're receiving a transmission from Ambassador Jones' ship," Lieutenant Brown announced. Ambassador Patricia Jones led the diplomatic team sent directly to the Council homeworld. Her mission was to demand the return of the children while gathering information. The ambassador's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. "The Council claims they know nothing about the abduction," she reported. "Most Council members seemed genuinely shocked by the footage we showed them." "What about Councillor Vexmorn?" Captain Wright asked. "Conveniently absent. His office says he's on a research retreat and cannot be disturbed." Ambassador Jones replied with clear disgust in her voice. "I've delivered our message. Return the children within 48 hours or face the consequences." "How did they respond to that?" Greg Thompson asked, stepping forward. Ambassador Jones smiled grimly. "They laughed. They think we're bluffing." After the transmission ended, Captain Wright turned to her navigation officer. "Set course for the Centauri Research Station. Team 2 has confirmed the abduction ships stopped there before continuing to their final destination." The Nightshade changed course, its engines leaving no visible trail as it accelerated. Meanwhile, on a distant research facility hidden in an asteroid field, the abducted children were waking up from sedation for the third time. They had been separated for individual study, but were brought together for meals under heavy guard. Lily Carter sat at a metal table with the other 5 children. She noticed cameras watching their every move. The food in front of them looked strange. Purple cubes and green paste. "Don't eat too much," she whispered to the others. "It makes you sleepy again." Kevin Porter nodded, pushing the food around his plate instead of eating it. At 10 years old, he was the son of an engineer and had his father's mechanical mind. "I counted 14 guards on this level," he whispered back, "and I think I know how the door locks work." Lily smiled slightly. She had been watching and learning too. Her father always told her that knowledge was the best weapon. She had been mapping the facility in her mind, noting the aliens' routines. 8-year-old twins Emma and Eric Nelson sat across from them. Despite being the youngest, they had discovered something important. "The air vents," Emma whispered. "They're big enough for us to fit. And they connect all the rooms," Eric added. Lily nodded but said nothing more as a guard approached. The alien researcher who seemed to be in charge walked in behind the guard. His skin had a metallic sheen that shifted colors in the light. "Subject 1, he said, pointing at Lily. "Come with me for further testing." Lily stood up slowly. This was the 3rd time they had taken her for tests. Each time, they had shown her different crystals like the one she found, asking questions about how it made her feel. As she followed the researcher down the hallway, she carefully counted steps and memorized turns. When they entered the laboratory, she recognized the equipment from previous sessions. "Sit," the researcher ordered, pointing to a chair with restraints. Lily hesitated. "What are you going to do?" "Nothing harmful," the researcher said. "We merely wish to understand why your species can interact with the crystals without side effects." "What side effects?" Lily asked, stalling while she examined the room for anything useful. The researcher prepared a syringe with blue liquid. Most species experience neural degradation when handling raw zenith crystals. Yet human children seem immune. He moved toward her with the syringe. This will help us understand why. Lily stepped back. My dad always says to watch and wait for the right moment. The researcher paused, surprised by her response. He made a note on his tablet. Fascinating. The young showed the same resistance behavior as adults. He looked at Lily with new interest. This will be included in my report to Counselor Vex Morn. Back on the Nightshade, Captain Wright's team intercepted a transmission from the research facility to Counselor Vex Morn's private channel. The ship's AI translated the alien language. They're definitely there, Lieutenant Brown confirmed. The transmission mentioned human subjects and test results. Greg Thompson's face hardened. How soon can we reach them? 18 hours, Captain Wright replied. And we won't be going alone. Ambassador Patricia Jones stood tall before the Galactic Council. Her gray suit and stern expression showed she meant business. 30 alien representatives sat in a semicircle around her, their different species showing in their varied shapes and colors. The human delegation thanks you for this emergency session, she began, her voice firm. But your time to act is running out. A large alien with blue skin and 4 arms spoke up. Ambassador Jones, we have told you already. The Council did not authorize any action against your colony or your children. Yet the evidence shows ships with Council markings took our children, Ambassador Jones replied. She nodded to her assistant, who played the footage again on the large screen. As the Council members watched Officer Miller's body camera footage for the second time, whispers filled the chamber. The insignia of Counselor Vex Morn's personal guard was clear to see. Where is Counselor Vex Morn? Ambassador Jones demanded. He has been absent from all our meetings. Before anyone could answer, alarms began to sound throughout the Council building. A guard rushed into the chamber. We're under attack, the guard shouted. Human ships have breached our defense perimeter. Ambassador Jones smiled coldly. Not an attack. A demonstration. Outside, 3 human ships engaged Council defense vessels. The Council military had always believed their technology was superior to Earth's. They were wrong. The human ships moved with impossible speed, their weapons cutting through shields that had protected the Council for centuries. What is happening? Asked the Council leader, standing up in shock. Phase 1 of our response, Ambassador Jones explained calmly. My diplomatic mission was sincere. This show of force is to ensure you understand what will follow if our children are not returned. Meanwhile, at a Council communications hub 12 light-years away, Captain Wright's team had arrived. The Nightshade dropped out of stealth mode just long enough to launch 6 small attack craft. The team needed the exact location of the research facility where the children were held. Greg Thompson led the infiltration squad. They entered the communications hub through a maintenance airlock. The aliens inside had no warning before the humans were among them. No unnecessary casualties, Greg reminded his team as they moved through the facility. We need information, not bodies. They reached the central data core without raising any alarms. Lieutenant Brown, who also served as the team's tech specialist, connected to the alien system. I need 10 minutes, he told Greg. You have 5, Greg replied, checking the corridor. On the research facility, Lily Carter was helping the other children prepare. Kevin had figured out how to short-circuit the cell doors during his last examination. The twins had mapped most of the ventilation system. They were waiting for the right moment. They're going to move us tomorrow, Lily told the others during their mealtime. I heard the guards talking. We need to be ready tonight. What if we get caught? Asked Maya Wilson, a 9-year-old girl who had been quiet until now. We won't, Lily said with confidence. And even if something goes wrong, our parents are coming for us. How do you know? Asked Maya. Because they always come, Lily answered. My dad says humans never leave their people behind, especially not children. As they spoke, a guard shoved Emma roughly, making her spill her food. The other children watched silently, but their eyes hardened. The guard didn't notice how they exchanged looks, forming a plan without words. Lily nodded slightly to Kevin, who accidentally knocked over his cup. While the guard was distracted by the spill, Eric slipped something from his pocket to Emma, a small tool he had stolen from the lab. Back at the Council homeworld, Elder Zithkar addressed the full council after the human ships withdrew. "I warned about this," he said, his voice heavy with concern. "The ancient records are clear about human behavior when their young are threatened." He activated a historical display showing the fate of the Drakari civilization. The council members watched in silence as images showed a technologically advanced society reduced to ruins in less than a month. "Several council members have already withdrawn support for whatever Vexmorn is doing," Zithkar continued. "I suggest we help the humans locate their children before it's too late." On the Nightshade, Lieutenant Brown had finished analyzing the data from the communications hub. "We have it," he told Captain Wright, pointing to a star map. "The research facility is here, in the Ta Virginis system. It's hidden in an asteroid belt." Captain Wright studied the location. "How heavily defended?" "Minimal security," Brown replied. "They weren't expecting anyone to find it." "How many children confirmed?" asked Greg Thompson. "All 6 accounted for," Brown said. "And sir, there's something else. They're specifically testing how the children interact with the zenith crystals. The reports mention unusual brain activity." Greg's expression darkened. "They're experimenting on them." "Yes," Brown answered quietly. "But the children are fighting back. There are multiple reports of unexpected resistance and concerning behavior from the test subjects." Greg smiled grimly. "That's my granddaughter." He turned to Captain Wright. "We need to move now." Captain Wright nodded and opened a channel to all human ships in Council space. "All units, we have confirmed target location. Converge on Ta Virginis. Operation Child's Return enters final phase in 6 hours." Lily Carter sat quietly in her cell, waiting for the right moment. The guards had just finished their evening patrol. The children had 3 hours before the next check. It was time. "Ready?" She whispered through the small air vent that connected her cell to Kevin's next door. "Ready," Kevin replied. "I'll short the locks when you give the signal." Lily had united the 6 children into a team during their captivity. Each had a job to do. Kevin would disable the door locks. The Nelson twins would guide everyone through the air vents they had mapped. Maya Wilson would create a distraction if needed. And Jack Reed, the oldest at 11, would help Lily lead everyone to the communication room they had discovered. In the past 3 days, Lily had carefully collected small items: a pen from a careless researcher, a fork from a meal tray, even strings from her own clothing. These simple items became tools in her hands. "Wait for my signal," she said, 1 hour after lights out. When the facility's lights dimmed for the night cycle, Lily began counting minutes silently. The guards thought the children were asleep, monitored by sensors that detected movement in their beds. But Lily had figured out that the sensors only checked pressure, not actual body heat or heartbeats. She had stuffed her blankets to look like a sleeping form. After exactly 1 hour, she tapped a simple code on the wall: 3 short, 2 long. The signal traveled from cell to cell. Kevin immediately went to work. Using the pen Lily had given him, he reached through the small food slot in his door and touched it to 2 exposed wires he had discovered days earlier. The facility's power fluctuated for just a second, long enough for the electromagnetic locks to reset. All 6 cell doors clicked open at once. The children moved silently into the hallway, meeting at the spot they had agreed upon: a maintenance closet near their cells. Emma and Eric Nelson, the 8-year-old twins, pointed to an air vent near the floor. "This one goes all the way to the communication room," Emma whispered. "We mapped it during testing yesterday," Eric added. Both twins had been placed in the same test room, and while one distracted the researchers, the other had studied the facility plans displayed on a computer screen. Jack Reed, tall for his age, helped remove the vent cover. One by one, the children slipped inside. Lily went last, carefully replacing the cover behind them. The metal tunnels were cold and dusty. The children crawled in single file, following the twins' directions. When they reached a junction where the maintenance shaft widened, Lily gathered them for a brief rest. "Remember the plan," she whispered. "Once we reach the communication room, Jack and I will try to send a message to Earth. The rest of you watch the doors." "What if the aliens catch us?" Maya asked, her voice trembling slightly. "They won't," Lily assured her. "But if anything happens, we stick together. No one gets left behind." The children continued through the ventilation system. After 20 minutes of careful crawling, they reached the vent that opened into the communication room. Through the slats, they could see that the room was empty except for one guard. "We need a distraction," Lily whispered. Maya nodded. She had been practicing bird calls during their captivity, something that fascinated the alien researchers. She moved to a different vent that opened into a hallway and made a series of strange chirping sounds. The guard in the communication room heard the noise and looked up, confused. When the sounds continued, he reluctantly left his post to investigate. The moment he was gone, Jack pushed open the vent cover, and the children climbed down into the room. Lily and Jack went straight to the communication console, while Kevin worked on locking the doors. "Can you make it work?" Kevin asked, looking at the alien technology. Lily studied the console. It was different from human designs, but her father had taught her the basics of communication systems. She recognized symbols that likely represented transmission frequencies. "I think so," she said. "We just need to find the right frequency for human ships." While Jack kept watch, Lily worked on the console. After several failed attempts, a light began blinking on the panel. "I think it's working," she whispered excitedly. Lily leaned close to what appeared to be a speaker. "This is Lily Carter from Terran Hope. 6 children captured. We're in a research facility hidden in asteroids. We've escaped ourselves but still inside facility. They're studying how we interact with strange crystals." She repeated the message 3 times, hoping it would reach any human ships in the area. She had no way of knowing if the transmission went through or who might have heard it. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The door to the communication room slid open, and 3 guards rushed in, weapons raised. "Get to the vents," Lily shouted. The children scrambled toward the opening, but they weren't fast enough. The guards grabbed Maya and Eric before they could escape. Lily looked back from the vent entrance. She couldn't leave them behind. "Surrender now," one guard said, "or these 2 will be punished." Lily stepped out of the vent with her hands raised. "Let them go. Take me instead. I'm the one you really want to study." The guard seemed surprised by her offer, but nodded to the others. They released Maya and Eric, who quickly joined the rest of the children in the vent. Only Lily remained in the room. "The counselor will be very interested in your behavior," the guard said as he secured Lily's hands. What the aliens didn't know was that Lily's sacrifice had given the other children the chance they needed, and her message had been received by the UES Nightshade, now less than 1 hour away from the facility. Captain Samantha Wright stood on the bridge of the UES Nightshade, listening to Lily's message for the 3rd time. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes burned with determination. "Time to arrival," she asked her navigation officer. 42 minutes, Captain," came the reply. Greg Thompson checked his weapon. "That's too long. They know the children are loose in the facility. They might move them." Captain Wright considered this, then nodded. "Launch the advance team now. Your squad goes in first, Mr. Thompson." Greg led 6 Special Forces soldiers to the launch bay. They boarded a small stealth shuttle designed for rapid deployment. As the shuttle departed the Nightshade, Greg addressed his team. "Our mission is simple. Find the children and secure them until the main force arrives. Avoid detection if possible, but if discovered, show no mercy to anyone who stands between us and those kids." The shuttle accelerated toward the asteroid belt, where the research facility was hidden. Inside the facility, chaos had erupted. The 5 escaped children crawled through the ventilation system while security teams searched for them. Kevin Porter led the group now that Lily had been captured. We need to find another way to help. Jack Reed whispered as they paused at a junction in the air ducts. I know where they took Lily, Emma Nelson said. During our tests, I saw a special room with all kinds of equipment. They called it the primary research chamber. That's where they'd take her. Kevin thought for a moment. Then that's where we're going. We can't leave her behind. The children changed direction, following Emma's guidance through the maze of air ducts. After 15 minutes of careful movement, they reached a vent overlooking a large laboratory. Through the slats, they could see Lily strapped to a chair in the center of the room. Several researchers surrounded her, preparing equipment. The counselor wants immediate results, one researcher said. Increase the crystal exposure to maximum levels. Kevin looked at the others. We need a plan. I can short-circuit the power like I did with the doors, he suggested, but it might affect the whole facility. Do it, Jack said firmly. While Kevin prepared to sabotage the power system, the main researcher approached Lily with a large glowing crystal. You've demonstrated remarkable resistance and intelligence, he told her. Most species would be passive after capture. You organized the others, didn't you? Lily stared back defiantly. Humans don't give up easily, especially not when someone takes our freedom. The researcher made notes on his tablet. Fascinating. Now I want you to hold this crystal and tell me what you feel. Before Lily could respond, the lights in the facility flickered and went out. Emergency lights came on, bathing the room in dim red light. Now, Jack whispered. The children pushed open the vent and dropped into the laboratory. The researchers were so surprised by the sudden power failure and the appearance of children from the ceiling that they froze momentarily. That hesitation was all the children needed. Jack and Maya pushed one researcher aside while the twins grabbed lab equipment and threw it at the others. Kevin ran to Lily and began unfastening her restraints. Time to go. An alarm sounded throughout the facility. A voice announced over the speakers, Security breach in Docking Bay 1. Unknown vessel has attached to the hull. The human rescue team had arrived. Greg Thompson led his squad through the facility's corridors with cold efficiency. They moved like shadows, using technology that jammed the facility's internal sensors. When they encountered security teams, they used non-lethal weapons that put the aliens to sleep instantly. Life signs detected ahead, reported one soldier, checking a handheld scanner. 6 small humans and several aliens in the main laboratory. Greg's heart beat faster. The children. Move in, standard rescue formation. As they approached the laboratory, they heard the sounds of a struggle. Greg signaled his team to breach the door immediately. The Special Forces team burst into the laboratory to find an unexpected scene. The children had already freed Lily and were fighting the researchers using improvised weapons. 2 aliens lay unconscious on the floor, while another was cornered by the twins who were throwing small objects at him with surprising accuracy. When the doors opened, the children turned, ready to fight what they thought would be more guards. Instead, they saw humans in combat gear. Lily stepped forward, standing protectively in front of the other children. Greg removed his helmet, revealing his face. Lily, he said, his voice catching with emotion. Lily's eyes widened. Grandpa. She ran to him, and he knelt to embrace her. I knew you'd come, she said. We'll always come, Greg replied, holding her tightly. No matter where they take you. The rest of Greg's team secured the room while he checked the other children for injuries. Amazingly, they all seemed relatively unharmed, though tired and hungry. Captain, we've secured the primary targets, Greg reported over his comlink. All 6 children recovered and ready for extraction. Copy that, Captain Wright responded. Main force has secured the facility. No resistance remaining. Bring them home. As Greg led the children toward the extraction point, an alarm sounded. A security door sealed the corridor ahead. Changing route, Greg told his team calmly. Secondary extraction point. Lily tugged at his arm. Wait. There's something you need to see. The crystals they were studying. They're important. Greg looked down at his granddaughter. How do you know? Because I can hear them, Lily said. All of us can. That's why they took us. The crystals. They talk to children. 1 month after the rescue, the great chamber of the Galactic Council looked very different. Armed human soldiers stood at every entrance. The council members sat nervously as they waited for the human delegation to arrive. Elder Zithkar, now leading the council after Vexmorn's removal, watched as the chamber doors opened. Ambassador Patricia Jones entered first, followed by Captain Samantha Wright and several other officials. Behind them came 6 small figures, the rescued children. The aliens murmured in surprise. Bringing children to such a meeting was unprecedented. The human delegation is recognized, Elder Zithkar announced formally. We welcome you and offer again our deepest apologies for the actions of former Counselor Vexmorn. Ambassador Jones nodded coolly. The children requested to be present. As the victims of the Council's failure, they have that right. Lily Carter stepped forward, standing beside the ambassador. The other 5 children formed a line behind her. They had recovered well from their ordeal. They stood tall and unafraid before the assembled aliens. We are here to finalize the new treaty. Ambassador Jones continued. The terms have been distributed to all council members. Elder Zithkar gestured to the document displayed on every council member's screen. These terms significantly alter the balance of power in the galaxy. Yes, Ambassador Jones agreed simply. They do. Captain Wright stepped forward. The alternative was war. Consider yourselves fortunate. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what had happened to Counselor Vexmorn and his research team. After the children were rescued, Greg Thompson had led a team to capture Vexmorn as he attempted to flee. Rather than killing him, the humans had done something unexpected. They had brought him back to face justice. Now Vexmorn sat in a special containment chamber, awaiting trial for his crimes. But his fate would not be decided by the Council or even by human courts. In a surprising move, Earth had declared that the abducted children themselves would determine his sentence. We have studied your species during this conflict, Elder Zithkar said carefully. Your military capabilities far exceed what you have shown the galaxy. You could have destroyed us. Lily Carter spoke up, her young voice clear in the large chamber. We learned about you too. While we were captives, we studied you. We know your strengths and weaknesses. The council members shifted uncomfortably at being addressed by a human child. But none interrupted. We don't want war, Lily continued. But we won't let anyone take children again. Not human children, not any children. Ambassador Jones placed a hand on Lily's shoulder, then addressed the council. This brings us to the first clause of the new treaty. Elder Zithkar, please read it aloud. Zithkar looked down at his screen and read. The sentient offspring of all species are protected entities. Violation of this protection by any civilization constitutes an act of war against all civilizations. The children insisted on this wording. Ambassador Jones explained. It protects not just humans, but all children throughout the galaxy. And the Zenith crystals? Asked a council member. Will humans share what they have learned about them? Captain Wright nodded to Kevin Porter, who stepped forward. Though only 10 years old, he spoke with confidence. The crystals respond to certain brainwave patterns common in children, he explained. They can store and transmit information. We're still learning how they work, but we'll share what we discover with trustworthy species. 2 weeks later, the human fleet departed Council space. The new treaty had been signed by all member species. Earth had gained significant new protections and privileges in galactic affairs. The children had returned to their homes on Terran Hope, now heroes throughout human space. In the Carter family's home, Lily sat with her parents and grandfather, watching the sunset through their dome window. Do you think they'll keep their word? Lily asked, looking up at her father. Commander Alan Carter smiled at his daughter. They know better than to break a promise to humans now. Dr. Susan Carter, analyzing data from the Zenith crystals on her tablet, looked up. The crystals could change everything. The way they store information, their energy potential, It's revolutionary. Greg Thompson leaned back in his chair. All because my granddaughter found a shiny rock. Lily grinned. And because humans always come for their children. Across the galaxy, the story spread rapidly. How 6 human children and their determined rescuers had brought the mighty Galactic Council to its knees. How humans had shown both terrifying strength and surprising mercy. Most importantly, how they had established the one rule that now defined galactic civilization: the protection of children everywhere. On distant worlds, parents of many species told their children the new bedtime story about the humans who came from a small blue planet, who fought like demons when their young were threatened, but who used their victory to protect all children, not just their own. And in the years that followed, whenever conflicts arose between species, the mediators would always begin with the same reminder: remember the first rule of the galaxy.